Okay, so if you're a dog owner in St. Charles, you already know it's a pretty great place for our four-legged friends. But, to really make the most of it all, having a well-trained dog makes a huge difference. So what we're going to do here is give you a complete guide, all the tools you need to feel really confident about picking the right trainer for your dog. That way, you both can get out and enjoy everything our town has to offer.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll talk about what life can look like with your dog here in St. Charles. Then we'll get into what actually makes a trainer great. After that, we'll cover the different programs, formats, and of course the costs. Then I'll give you a super useful checklist for when you're ready to hire someone. And finally, we'll bring it all home and talk about training right here in our community.
All right, let's kick things off with a big picture. I mean, why are we even talking about this? Just picture it for a second. You're taking a nice, relaxed walk down the Fox River Trail, and your dog is just trotting happily right next to you. No pulling. Or maybe you're grabbing coffee downtown, and your dog isn't lunging at every person who walks by. That's the dream, right? That's the goal. Just having a great dog who can be a happy, safe part of your life here in St. Charles.
Okay, so to get to that point, you really need to find the right person to help you. A good professional partner. So let's talk about what actually makes a dog trainer really good. Someone you can trust.
So the absolute cornerstone of any good modern dog training is something called positive reinforcement. And really, it's not just some fancy term, it's a method that's backed by science. The whole idea is to focus on teaching your dog what you want them to do instead of just punishing what you don't want. So think about it like this. Instead of yelling no when your dog jumps on someone, you reward them with a treat or praise the second all four of their paws are back on the ground. It's all about building trust and making learning a good experience. This is what you should be looking for sure.
Now, you might see a bunch of letters after a trainer's name, and they can look kind of confusing, but they really do matter. Things like CPDTK or certifications from the IABC. What they tell you is that this person has actually passed some serious exams and is dedicated to keeping up with the latest, best methods. A CPDTK is a fantastic baseline for general training skills. And if you see something like IABC or CBCCK, that often means they have extra expertise in tougher behavior problems.
Okay, so now that we know what to look for in a person, let's talk about the actual training programs themselves. We'll look at the different types you'll find and, importantly, what you should probably budget for here in and around St. Charles.
For the most part, you're going to find two main flavors of training: group classes and private sessions. Group classes, they're awesome for things like general obedience and getting your dog used to focusing on you when other dogs are around, which is a huge skill. But then you have private sessions, and that's where you get that one-on-one personalized help. This is perfect if you're dealing with a specific problem, like your dog going crazy when the doorbell rings, or maybe some reactivity when you're out on a walk.
All right, let's talk money. Here's a look at the typical cost you can expect for 2026. And yeah, you can see the prices really do range quite a bit depending on what you're looking for. A 6-week group class, for example, is usually in that few $100 range, but something more intensive, like a board and train program, well, that's a much bigger financial commitment. This should give you a really good starting point for figuring out your budget for training, right here in St. Charles and the surrounding area.
Okay, so you've got a budget in mind, you know what kind of training you might need, now it's time to actually check out some trainers. And you really should think of it like you're interviewing someone for a super important job, because, well, you are.
So, when you get a trainer on the phone or meet them in person, what are the absolute must-ask questions to figure out if they're the right fit for you and your dog?
Here are 5 essential questions you absolutely have to ask. First, what's your main training philosophy? And listen closely for positive reinforcement. Second, what kind of professional certifications do you have? You'll know what those letters mean now. Third is a big one. How are you going to customize this plan for my dog specifically and for our family's routine? You also want to ask how they'll track progress and keep you in the loop. And finally, get it all out in the open. What is the total cost, and are there any extra fees I should know about? No surprises.
All right, the last big piece of this is taking all those skills you learned in a training class and actually using them out in the real world, right here in our town, where there are specific rules and some really great resources to be aware of.
So here are a few key things every dog owner in St. Charles needs to know. First up, the leash law. When you're in a public space, your dog has to be on a leash that's 10 feet or shorter. Simple enough. Also, the city requires you to get an annual dog license. To get that, you just need to show proof of a current rabies shot, which is actually a requirement for the whole state of Illinois. It's all just part of being a good neighbor and a responsible dog owner here.
And once you start building those skills, you're going to want some great places to practice them. We're lucky to have some awesome options. Paws Park, our city's off-leash park, is the perfect, safe place to work on that tricky recall. The Fox River Trail, it's like the ultimate practice ground for loose leash walking, with all the real-world distractions, joggers, bikes, you name it. And if you need something a little less hectic, the trails at Fabian Forest Preserve are just beautiful and perfect for helping your dog build focus.
So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? It's that you're not just looking for someone to come in and fix your dog. Not at all. You're looking for a partner, a coach, who's going to give you the tools and the confidence you need to help your dog really thrive.
You know, putting in this effort and finding the right person to help, it really just opens up our whole community for you and your dog to enjoy together. Having that well-trained buddy just makes every walk by the river, every trip to the park, and every stroll downtown so much more enjoyable. For you, for your dog, and for everybody else too. We really wish you the best of luck on your training journey.